Hey gang, number one Marmaduke fan here. Still working my way through my Walmart comic spending spree, and I got a Christmas present. I think I'll talk about this second, since I'm mostly just going to be talking about the illustrations. So this is the Walmart Titans 100-page comic giant, number one. So I am so happy with DC for doing this. So number one, let's talk about price point. $5 for five, basically 24-page stories. Great deal. You're getting about a dollar per story value out of this. Fantastic. That's an easy grab. Second, they did a really good job in selecting the stories for this. One of my complaints about modern comics is they're written for 30 and 40-year-olds who have extensive knowledge of these comic universes, and they've just basically selected 5 really fun stories, including some old ones. There are 2 brand new stories, so it gives it kind of a added value for guys like me who read a lot of these books when they came out in the LCS. They have like an old-timey, I'd say like 80s era story, or maybe like mid-70s story. Which is nice because it's giving the kids an intro to some of the older characters. And then 2 more recent stories, and I enjoyed them both for different reasons. So I'll probably do like a quick review of everything. Only thing that kind of annoyed me is they didn't tell you what the original story was published under. So if you're like a comic nerd and you want to know it's Teen Titans, I don't know, 27 or whatever, sorry, they don't tell you that. They just give you like the colorful title of the story rather than the number of the comic, and the number of the comic's more useful for finding it. So history lessons, artist was Scott Koblish, and some layouts were done by Tom Grummett. This is what I'd call like a perfectly solid story. Like the art is just okay. I wouldn't call it top tier art, but it's really solid and serviceable for an adventure story. The adventure story is really fun and has the Teen Titans teaming up to fight a giant rock monster. And it has a nice little heart and soul message to it where Beast Boy, since childhood, he's been afraid of losing control of his powers, and he's put into a situation where he has to let his powers go out of control to get out of a certain like magical villain's clutches. And there's also a really neat thing of Dick Grayson being competent and older in the group, and basically like kicking them all over the place to teach them how to fight without using their powers. So that's some great fun. Once the rock monster shows up, it's just great classic, teaming up to fight the giant monster stuff. And I also think they were really smart in they're including some characters from the cartoon while trying to build up some different characters. So Starfire and Beast Boy and Raven are going to be like, you need those characters now because the cartoon has kind of made them iconic. And they're also trying out Jason Todd in a Teen Titan role, and Donna Troy, Wonder Girl. Very heartfelt little story and a tough moment for Beast Boy. The next one, where's the artist on this? I gotta go digging for it. It's a Raven-centric story. Where's the credits? I want to find the artist so I can highlight it. Maybe it's at the very end. There we go. Mark Guggenheim was the writer, and Steve Pugh was the artist. This one has just Raven hearing about a cult and going to rescue a girl from it. It's very straightforward in that she basically just shows up and beats up the cult leader, and that's enough to wake up the cult members. But she has to fight it first. Like I thought, she pretty easily vanquishes the cult leader, but it didn't come all at once. She had to basically reach through to the people to snap them out of his control. And there's also a nice little reference to Matthew 7 at the end. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing. So what's nice about this is you read, like just by including something like that, you read this as a commentary on actual cults and false prophets. You don't read this as a metaphor about how religion is bad. Watch out for religion. Because that's really important. Like if you want to tell normie stories, basically signal to the normies that this is a comic for everybody. This isn't just a comic for Fedora Reddit atheists. And I thought the art, Pugh, really solid. Like he's got a good facial variety. Yeah, and good expressions as well. Soy Boy, of course, shows up. Yeah, so Raven kind of in a more modern scenario. They don't tell you what the number is for this, but the story is the Coast to Coast Calamities, kind of building up the West Coast Teen Titans and the classic Teen Titans. I totally suppressed this memory, but when I was a little kid, I remember having a few comics with Harlequin in it and thinking, oh, that must be where Harley Quinn came from. Nope, Harley Quinn's a completely different character. So there was if you might not have known this, but there was a completely different clown female themed superhero on the Teen Titans. So not an obscure book in like the 70s and early 80s. And it was also kind of interesting how they knew the B team were the less popular characters, so this was kind of like a chance to try to build up some B-list and D-list characters. Golden Eagle, like a Hawkman spinoff. The original Batgirl, not Barbara Gordon. Beast Boy. Beast Boy was originally like a D-lister for a while until they built him up. Lilith, I don't know anything about her, and Hawk and Dove. So it's kind of like this neat thing where they know who you're here for. You're here for the Robin and the Kid Flash and the Wonder Girl, but we're also going to try to build up some of these characters. The art, Don Heck and Joe Giela. I've seen some Don Heck art in Marvel, and he had a much cruder style, and this was a much more polished style. So kind of seeing him maybe like at the top of his game at this point of his career. There's some classic stuff like Captain Calamity, who shoots them with guns that gives them bad luck and does cheesy villain monologues. That's great stuff. Lots of creative stuff with how they kind of use their powers in day-to-day life. Just a very straightforward, like, simple, the superheroes go on an adventure together kind of story. I really dig it. The other thing I wanted to call attention to was the editor, Julie, who isn't credited. So I'd have to look up who this is, but she is incredibly knowledgeable of what's going on. And so for every single character, she tells you what their introductory issue was, and she explains continuity questions you might have for like, well, how'd that guy get his wings back? Didn't he lose his wings? And she knows everything that's going on in the DC universe. So fantastic job. That's exactly what an editor is supposed to know, kind of anticipates questions. Not a fake geek girl, a real geek girl. She knows all about the DC universe. Good job, editor. The Starfire story, again, I don't have the number on it. What I liked about this is they're taking a couple ideas from the cartoon. So the cartoon version of Starfire, they had the bright idea of kind of making her a fresh off the boat immigrant who's very exuberant and doesn't get Earth culture that much, which makes her identifiable. You start to identify with her as sort of like a foreign exchange student. The other neat thing is they have some like girly things in this book, and I think it works because what they're leaning into is they're leaning into Starfire as a pretty princess type of character, and even some like the art and colors emphasizes that girly aspect of her character, but very, very beautiful art. So what I'm saying is they're adding appeal for a female readership without chasing away a male readership. So they know like a big deal about Starfire is that she's beautiful. So they're going to emphasize that. The writers are Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, and the penciler was Emanuela Lupacchino. The inker was Ray McCarthy. Very professionally drawn issue. Great use of expression to underscore her kind of like comedic reactions as she doesn't understand something that's said in English. And they also did a smart thing where when someone uses an English phrase she doesn't understand, they illustrate it in literal pictorial form. So he says, I'll give her 3 big ones for that, and she thinks 3 elephants. That's great. It's hard to communicate how a character would misunderstand a phrase. And so having like a literal cute picture is enough that even a little kid could see what the misunderstanding is. So very good writing at for a youth audience. There's also a theme that she's not a fan service character. She just doesn't get human ideas of modesty, which is one of the things that creates these sort of like cheesecake fan service moments, but it's also a character building thing for her. So it just feels very natural, very, very warm, a very likable character, and a setup for the next issue. They also reprinted an Adventures of the Super Sons. I think I reviewed this when it came out in floppy format, so I won't restate all my thoughts here, but Super Sons were great. I didn't like Damian Wayne, and it just had the bright idea of putting Damian Wayne in like a team building situation with Jonathan Kent, the son of Superman, where Damian Wayne was a little bit of the smarter and more bullying of the two, and Jonathan Kent was a bit more of the naive, innocent, and sweet of the two, which was great. And so they have like the classic, like fighting supervillains, getting out of school and feeling excited, having their own secret base where they can drink soda and don't have to worry about the rules about not eating candy. And then like a junior in Justice League shows up and beats them up. So it's a great setup for the next issue. So what DC is doing that is really smart is I don't think this series sold too well when it came out, despite having like a cult following on the internet that was talking about how excellent it was. And they're using kind of like their normie Walmart books as a chance to give a second life to some of their really good series from yesteryear that may not have sold quite as well. And they're picking series that are going to have like a really great friendly kid appeal to them. You don't need lots of comic book continuity knowledge to understand this. Also, let's flip through this. This is Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis, published by Tiny Font, Kadokawa Tsubasa Bunko. I think some of these have been released in English by Seven Seas Entertainment, but I don't know if the Lewis books have been released yet. So I'm just collecting these because I saw a Weeb post art of it on the internet, and I just thought, oh, I have to have that. So I'll flip through the illustrations with you. Generally, what I like about this is what this is showing is that classic stories have a universal, like, enduring appeal. And one of the nicest things you can do is present that in a package that the new generation understands or resonates with. So it invites them into the world of of classic literature. So one thing about Prince Caspian is, I think in the books he's canonically supposed to have golden hair, but Peter's already a blonde. So of course it's anime, so they give him bright red ginger hair to make him stand out. That's okay, I don't mind it. And just a couple color illustrations on the front. I really love the sympathy and like how often they click with important moments in the book. So his tutor, the half-dwarf, basically is the one who warns Prince Caspian that his uncle wants to kill him and sends him on his great adventure to defend the Narnians. You can also tell they pay a lot of attention to like catching you up on the story and telling you like the most important stuff. So the four thrones, the four children. Here's all the main characters you're going to need to know with a picture and their name right underneath them in a label. Here's some exciting moments that are coming. Here's a map, and I even noticed little things like they put Aslan on the mountain there, presumably because that's where Lucy sees Aslan on their journey. I just want to flip through. I haven't reread this book recently, but I did listen to the radio drama to kind of reorient myself. So the main four on the beach, the main four having snacks, flipping forward a little bit. I don't know what that is in reference to. Maybe a chess game is played in the book at some point. They re-enter Narnia and they discover the gifts they thought they left behind. I think they gradually start gaining their knowledge and experience back that they built from their first adventure in Narnia. There's Susan using her archery to rescue one of the dwarves from the evil uncle's men. If I remember right, she plonks one of them on the helmet. And they have to survive on fish and apples. And the dwarf basically becomes like a character who kind of narrates to them the story within the story about Prince Caspian. So Prince Caspian's uncle doesn't believe in Aslan, doesn't believe the Narnians ever existed, and wants Prince Caspian to forget about the childish stories from his youth. And his uncle is acting as regent, and at first doesn't seem to mind having Prince Caspian around until he produces a legitimate son, which means that if he can kill Prince Caspian, then his son will get to rule on the throne of Narnia. So his instructor warns him of this, and Prince Caspian makes a run for it and tries to lead the Narnians in a rebellion against his uncle. So there he is fleeing from his uncle's house, some lightning for extra drama. I think the illustrator on this is Nardak, which is, I think, the name of a studio or a collection of artists. They meet the two dwarves and the badger. I don't remember the dwarves' names, but I do remember that the black-bearded dwarf secretly worships the White Witch and thinks that if he brings back the White Witch, things might be better for the dwarves. There's kind of like an element of summoning Satan for some of the bad guys in this book. Animal life, fantastic. They do like important scenes, and they do just like a couple colorful little things. Reaper Cheap, what a great character. I like the detail that they gave him like a ring on his ear for his feather. And I like that they gave him like the musketeer hat and musketeer outfit to kind of highlight his soldierly character. That would be Caspian meeting with the fauns. What other illustrations are there? I want to find them all. Oh, come on. I'm going to set you guys down and find the next one. Here we go. All right, so this has got to be Caspian saying farewell to the good dwarf after he reunites with the Narnians. All right, epic shot of Caspian trying out his sword and armor. I recall that the Narnians didn't do too well because they were basically outnumbered, and he's actually the one who summoned the Pevensey children back to Narnia. So Lucy, who's kind of had the strongest connection with Aslan on the first trip, makes several trips out to the woods, and she keeps encountering, she sees glimpses of Aslan without him talking directly to them. And I think they encounter a bear who's lost the ability to speak. So it's almost something kind of like cruel or inhuman that some of the animals have been stripped of their soul and their dignity to the point that they behave like normal animals. And at first, nobody in the group either believes Lucy or they're not sure if seeing Aslan means they should follow Aslan. So there's this kind of like, they take this long circuitous route, basically not going the way Aslan wants them to be going. And there's a lot of talk about them having to eat apples over and over again until they get sick of it. And Lucy finally encounters and gets to speak to Aslan after basically missing her chance to talk to him the first couple times. Also, Lucy gets to encounter the creatures of the forest, and I love how the style sort of underscores the magical quality they have. This will be the cult and the hags planning to resurrect the White Witch. These are the the false king's advisors, sort of goading him into challenging Peter to take basically like a duel of honor to determine who will be the true king of Narnia. What else is there? I don't know who some of these characters are, but this has got to be like everybody reuniting at the end after defeating the king. Ooh, what's that one? Oh, and Reepicheep lost his tail, and this tail is a source of pride and dignity for him. Oh yeah, and then the humans who were participated in trying to take over the throne, they're given the choice of either staying in Narnia or passing through a door onto an island in the regular world where they can live a life of peace there. Is that all? All right, and then the Pevensey children again. And then there are also some like advertisements. So I've got The Princess and the Goblin. I don't know what this one would be. Some of these I can recognize. Others are, it's harder for me to tell right away. I know that's Peter Pan. That's pretty easy to identify. This is just a great little cottage industry. Like take classics of English literature and present them in a style that really clicks with people. So I'm going to keep collecting these. I'll keep showing these off as I get them. They're not cheap. I guess you have to pay a little extra for whatever it costs to import them, but they're about $30 a piece. But for me, it's like too perfect an opportunity to pass up. Princess and the Goblin is in English. I'm not sure if the Narnia books are in English yet, but I will try to hunt them down to showcase more. All right, definitely 100% check out the Walmart books. This has been our Western and Weeb content for the day. I'm No More Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Catch you later.